This is Gemara in Gittin, Daf Yud Aleph? Yes. Daf Yud Aleph, Baruch Hashem. This is the Daf for Shabbos, the second day of Yontif, B'siyata D'Shmaya. We're going to get it up before Yontif, anyone trying to prepare. And here we go. Yudam and Beis, we're about 6 lines from the bottom. And again, a little bit of a public service announcement. About half of the shirim, or I should say the shirim for the month of Tammuz, have already been recorded. If anyone has anything that they have in the month of Av, a Yartzeit, a Simcha, any reason that they like to be Mishtatev, to partner in sharing Torah, please reach out. So says the Gemara, Yudam and Beis, about 5 lines from the bottom. And the Gemara quotes a line that hopefully should sound a little bit familiar, as we had this quoted on Testament Beis in yesterday's shir. Says the Gemara, Rav Shimon Aimer, says Rav Shimon, Af elu kashirim, even these are kosher. And this is quoting from the end of the Mishnah. The Rav Shimon said, even Get Isha and Shar Shechur are kosher, even from a Gaisha court with Gaisha signatures. The only time it's not kosher is Nasu Be'ed Yaiti. So the first part of today's shir is going to be dealing with the end of this Mishnah, the statement of Rav Shimon. Says the Gemara, Valavine Krisis Ninu. How could it be? How could it be that you have a Get Isha, that you have a Shtar Shechur that's signed and written in a Gaisha court with Gaisha signatures? Delavine Krisos. Amar Rav Zera, explains Rav Zera, Yarad Rav Shimon, and this was the part that we had. Now we're going to see it inside properly. Yarad Rav Shimon, the Shita Seisha Rav Elazar. Rav Shimon, who's holding that you could have a kosher get, a kosher shtar shechur, even in a Gaisha court with Gaisha Edim, is going within the opinion of Rav Shimon Rav Elazar, Damar. Hopefully by now this should be clear what Rav Elazar holds. Says Rav Elazar, Eidei Misira Karti. Says Rav Elazar, Eidei Misira, the giving of the get, witnesses witnessing the giving of the get is that which effects the get itself. And that's why it'll be kosher, even though it's in a Gaisha court, and even though they're Gaisha signatures. Asks the Gemara Kash that we should all be anticipating back from that we learned on Daf Gimel. But what do you mean? Rav Elazar is ma'ideh that it's mizuyev mitaychai, that if are edim but they're not kosher edim, as we spoke about, this is the irony. Rav Elazar holds you don't even need edim in the shtar, but if there are, then they have to be kosher edim. If it's mizuyev mitaychai, if there are edim but those edim are possible, like our case of the Gaisha edim, then it's possible. Answers the Gemara and explains the Gemara. The reason why over here, according to Rav Shimon, it's going to be kosher within the opinion of Rav Elazar, within Edim Mesira Karti, even though normally Mezuyev Mitaycha is a psal, but over here it's going to be kosher. Why is it going to be kosher? I apologize for that unsightly line on the side of your Gemara. There it is. Why over here is it going to be kosher? Says Rav Shimon. Says the Gemara, B'Shemais Mavhakim, on the top line of Yud Aleph and Aleph. The reason is that there are discernible names that Gittin don't usually use these names, and therefore we don't have to be concerned, as Rashi explains, that we're going to come rely on these signatures because they're clearly Gaisha names. Says the Gemara, Heichidami, what is the case that this is referring to? Shemais Mavhakim. What are examples of names that are clearly not Jewish, and therefore you're not going to come to rely upon them? Which, by the way, we're learning the depth of that which the Gemara is teaching us. Rav Elazar is Maidim Mezuyev Mitaycha is possible. Why? Because Rav Elazar holds really the Edim Mesir, the giving of the get, is that which affects the acquisition. That's what affects the transfer, the Chalais, the Gittin, the Shtar Shechur. So why would it be possible if the signatures are not good? Because we might come to rely on those signatures. But says the Gemara, but if there are Shemus Mavhakim, but if there are names that are clearly not Jewish, then we don't have to worry about that. So again, the irony continues that the more not that it is, the better that it is. Amar Abba, Goim Hormiz, Avinna, Bar Sheptai, Bar Kidri, Ubati, Nikam, Aina, all fascinating non-Jewish names, and therefore that's why it will be kosher. Avol, but explains the Gemara, if it's a name that's not clearly a Gaisha name, if it's a name that we don't necessarily know, what's the din? Loi, it will not be kosher. So when Rav Shimon in the Mishnah said that Gad Isha, Shtar Shechur are going to be kosher, even though it's with a Gaishas Matzif, is only with Shemais Move hakim. It's only with clearly not Jewish names. Ask the Gemara 4 lines down. Yud Aleph and Aleph. Iyachi, if that's true. Aditani Sevalayos. How did the Mishnah conclude? The Mishnah concluded that according to Rav Shimon, when is there a case that it's not kosher? If it's made behedyet, if it's made with not Jewish. Outside of Bezdin, says the Gemara, the classical kasha lifting, the Mishnah should have differentiated within the Shita of Rav Shimon. The Bemed, Varmamuruman, is it going to be good b'shemis mavakim? Avashemis mavakim lai. Answers the Gemara, terrace number 1, that is indeed how you read the Mishnah. Hachinami kamar, this is how the Mishnah is supposed to be read. But med, varmamuruman shevis mavakim, you have to insert those words, that's when it's kosher. Avashemis mavakim, nasa kumi, we make it as if shenasa behedin, it's made without a quart, upsulim, and it's going to be puzzle. So terrace number 1 is when is the din in the Mishnah that it's kosher according to Rav Shimon. Shemais mov hakin. And that's gufa how you read the end of the Mishnah. If Shimon was in move hakim, the halacha is going to be it's nasa kimi. It's as if it was made behedyot. I apologize. It's nasa kimi. Little coffee granules going on over there. Nasa kimi. It was as if it's made behedyot outside of Bezdin, and it's going to be puzzle. Iba Yisema continues the Gemara with Teretz number 2. A little bit of a difficult reading of the Mishnah. Seifa Asyon Legittin Mammon. The Seifa, the end of the Mishnah, is talking about a new case. Get to Mammon. V'achi Kamer. This is how you have to read it. Lo Yizkru Gittin Mammon Debesulin Ela Bizman Shenasa Behediyah. So for a moment, let's just scroll up to understand what just happened. What the Gemara just said is, if we look back at the Mishnah, Rav Shimon Omer Af Elu Ksherim. So says the Gemara now, Rav Shimon Omer Af Elu Ksherim, period. Says Rav Shimon, get Isha, Shtar Shikhr is kosher, period. Lo Yizkru, we did not mention what? Get Mamain Ela Shenasa Behedin. Again, a little bit of a difficult reading, but that is the second teretz of the Gemara. Tanya. So now, according to teretz number 1, we have a fascinating machlekes of Shimon and Tanakama. Tanakama says a Goyish cord works for everything and not for Get Isha. Rav Shimon says it does work for Get Isha. Why does it work for Get Isha? Because we're talking about Rav Elazar, Edi Mesira Karti. Why aren't we worried? Mezuyev Mitoichai, Shemos Muvakim. Tanya, and then we have the second teretz that is stripping in, Get Mammon in the middle. So now Tanya says the Gemara. We have a brisa, a bit of a difficult brisa, and this brisa is going to introduce another 3 opinions into our discussion. Amar Rav Elazar Rav Yosi, Kach Amar Rav Shimon Chachamim B'Tzidon. That's the name of a place. Shimon said to Chachamim in Tzidon that while Lonechlu Rav Akiva v'Chacham, Rav Akiva and Chacham don't argue al kol shtarais oilim be'arkai shalakum. They don't argue about all shtarais that are in Goyish system courts. That they don't argue about. And even by Shtar Shikhr, and even by Get Isha, there's no debate. Elo, what is the only time that Rav Akiva and the Chachamim are going to disagree with regard to Shtar Shikhr and Get Isha? Elo bizman shenasu behedyot. Only in a scenario that it is made by a hedyot, when it is made outside of a bezdin. That Rabbi Akiva machshir. Rabbi Akiva is going to say even Get Isha, even Shtar Shikhr is going to be kosher. Similar to the opinion of Rav Shimon. Taisus over here explains that we're going within such a case, that Edi Mesira Karti, that Shemos Muvakim, like Rav Shimon. And Rabbi Akiva holds you don't have to make a gezerah even behedyot, even outside, is going one step further than Rav Shimon. Shimon said not behedyot, or he even say even outside of Bezdin. Chachamim are going to be paislim. Chachamim are going to say if it's made outside of a Bezdin, it's a puzzle. Chutz, only those cases will be kosher. Why? Because the Chachamim hold a fascinating detail that I know it's ironic perhaps, but Get Isha and Shtar Shikhr are going to be better. Why? Because everyone knows, say the Chachamim made the Mesira Karti. So by a Get Isha and a Shtar Shikhr, we don't have to be worried they're going to come to rely upon the signatures because they know Edim Mesira Karti. Chachamim Paislim, other cases of Shtaros. Why? Because they're going to come to rely upon him. This is the Gezira Dirabanan. Rashba Goimer, a third opinion. Af elu kasherim, says Rav Shimon Gamliel, everything is kosher, even outside of Bezdin with Gaisha signatures. Why? B'makom she'ein Yisrael chaismin. When we're in a place that Yidin are not accustomed to sign, then we have to be concerned. So what's this new detail that Rashbag is introducing? Let's look down into the wide lines of Rashi. So the first wide line explains Rashi that Kasher Magam Shein Yisrael Chaismin Kalaymar. What does this mean that Yidin did not sign? That Af Elu, says Rashi, Kalaymar Af Elu Gittin Shata Machshirim. He must say in kosher. What is the get kosher? B'makom she'ein Yisrael chaisvin be'ir she'ein akom enichan es Yisrael la'achtaim. We're discussing they didn't let the Yidden sign documents, and therefore the kivan she'ein Yisrael chaisvin b'yisir, and that whole city Yidden would never sign a document. Therefore, ha'kol yoidim she'im akom. Everyone knows that whoever signed this document, it must be a guy, because they don't let Yidden sign. They're not going to come to rely upon them. And therefore, Rashbag is going to hold that everything is going to be kosher, because we don't have to even make a gezerah, because we know we're never going to come to be saimich on the signatures, as the entire city doesn't let Yidden to sign. So clearly, the signatures are gayish, and therefore we don't have to be concerned about anything. Says the Gemara, ask the Gemara, I don't understand. Why don't we make a Gezerah? Just like the whole discussion between Rav Akiva and the Tanakama and the Chachamim was, in what scenario make a Gezerah? So ask the Gemara, according to Rav Shimon Gamliel, very good, Yidden don't sign documents in this place, but we should make a Gezerah. Answers the Gemara, Shamu b'Shamu nechlaf. When we have a case in which the names are similar, then we have to be worried they're going to become confused, and therefore we make a gezerah. But asr ba'asr loy mechlaf, they're never going to make a mistake. If this entire city is one they don't let Yidden sign, we don't have to be worried they're going to come to confuse asr place with place. New case, Ravina Zavadachshi Bekunuf Yasa Daramai. Ravina thought to machshir even outside of a Bezdin with a Gaisha signatures. Amli Rafram Archais Tanan, it's only kosher with a Bezdin of Goyim. Amarava Haishtara Barsa Persian Shar the Matzid Leba Bisadi Israel. That's given over in front of Yiddish Aidim. Magbinon Revin Chayri. We could collect from Bnei Chayrin. If we have a document that's Persian, so we can't necessarily know what it says, as the Gemara is about to speak out, but the signatures are Jewish, we can collect from the Chazim Bnei Chayrim, from properties that are there, but not from encumbered Mechasim Mishubadim. Asks the Gemara, how could this be? We don't know how to read Persian. Says the Gemara, B'diyad, you're talking about a case where they know. There's a basic din that the only time we machshir up a shtar is if it's a shtar that's in yachlet zayif that you can't afford to document. They would make it on a certain type of paper, with a certain type of ink, etc. And only the Yidden would do that. Says the Gemara, even these Goyim b'dafitza, they made it with these gold nuts and whatnot, and they made it that it cannot be forged. Says the Gemara, what do you mean? Is another din in shtar that the last line of the shtar we chazer over, we put a nice review, a summary at the end of the whole shtar. They didn't do this. So the Gemara that they actually did that. So says the Gemara, if such is the case that we can read the text and it's written in a way that it can't be forged, and it's written with appropriate review at the end, so we should be able to collect from everything, even mishubadim. Says the Gemara, less lay kala. No, there is no kol. Why is there no kol if everything was perfect about the shtar? So we look at the last Rashi. Rashi says the reason is because the Yidden, the fisha in chaysvin Yisrael, everything could be good, but the way that the Sadi, the Chatimi Ashtar, Inon Mafki Lakala. The call, the fact that everyone knows about this document, which thereby protects those who buy fields from this person. Therefore, the protection of Chassid Mishubadim is via the Yiddish signatures, and if we do not have that, there's no call, and that's why you cannot collect from the Chassid Mishubadim. It's true, we understand what it says. It's true that they wrote it appropriately, they were chayzer in the last line, but lamaisa, because there are no Yiddish signatures, there is no call. We continue on the last line of Yad Alpha and Aleph, by Minei Reish Lakish Meir Rav Yochanan. Reish Lakish asked of Rav Yochanan the following Shaila, as we turn over to Yad Alpha and base. Eidim achatumim alaget. We have eidim that are signing on a get ushemaisam kishemois akum mahu. And the names of these eidim resemble the names of Goyim. Ask the Gemara, what is the status of such a shtar? Explains the Gemara, Amar Le, he responded, Loibali Adenu Ella, Lucas Velus, only documents that were signed with the names Lucas and Luz, Vechsharnu. And we said that such a document is kosher. Why is such a document kosher? Says the Gemara, V'davka Lucas Velus Loishchichi Yisrael Damaski B'Shmei Sayu. Davka Lucas and Luz, that it's not common the Yid didn't have such names. So everyone knows this is what we call Shemos Muvakim. Everyone knows that they're Goyish names, therefore we can machshir it. Aval Shema Halsa Achrina Deshchichi Yisrael Damaski Shema Sayu. But other names that Yid didn't have as well, Loi, we cannot machshir it. We conclude the shtickle Gemara with a shayla. Esvei, an interesting shayla. We have a get that comes overseas and there's edim that signed and it says this braysa even though the names on this document eerily resemble goyim ksherim imnei Rav Yisrael shebechol, says the Gemara. The majority of Yidden in Chutz La'aretz, Shmei Yasei and Geshem Moisakim have names similar to the guy. So says the Gemara, I don't understand. You just told me only Davka, Lucas, Luz, names at 100%. But we see a Braisa that's teaching us that the Rav, the majority are names that, the majority are going to be kosher. Why? Because Rav Yisrael have similar names. Answers the Gemara, what's your kasha? It said the reason. This has nothing to do with Shemus Mavakim. It's nothing to do with Lucas and Luz. It's because the Mitzias of that time was that most of the Yid didn't have such names. Therefore, we're being mashur with what? With the kosher signature of the Yid. Says the Gemara, Teres number 1. Ikadiamri, Teres number 2, Kimatznita. So Teres number 2 is quite fascinating. As we look over at Rashi, Teres number 2 is a completely relearning of the entire Shtickle Gemara. We just thought that we had a kasha on Shemus Mavakim with an answer. Ikadiamri, let's look at Rashi. Rashi is about 15 lines into the narrow lines, about 6 lines from the Mishnah. Kimasnita ba'imine. Gittin, now what? Gittin abam dinas yamash saying kishemois akamau. So the new way of learning the Gemara is that it's a new isolated shayla. What is the status of a get that comes from dinas yam with names that are similar to Goyish names? And from there we answered from Rav Yochanan from the Mishnah that it's kosher to b'chesed Yisrael, and they knew why, because Rav Yisrael are such names. So it's a new way of learning that it's a shayla with a taretz, and all is good and dandy. And we continue with the Mishnah to wrap up today's shir. Says the Mishnah, Haimer 10 gezel ishti. Someone says, give this get to my wife. Ishtar shechur zel. I have to give this shtar to my aved. We had this yesterday. Holtz. You're allowed to be chayzer. You give it to the shliach. The shliach does not acquire it on behalf of the person. He has to actually give it. So before he gives it, you're able to be chayzer to retract. Chachamim Aimer Begittin Nashim, I'm asking. By Gerisha you could attract Avaloi B'Shchuri Avodim, but not by an Evid going free. Why not? You could acquire something on someone's behalf, even when you're not in front of him. So to free an Evid is a chus for him, is something good for him. Therefore you could acquire it. Just like if I find $100, I'm allowed to say I'm picking this up for Ruvain, and it's you actually Ruvain's, because you're able to be Zaycha to acquire something on behalf of someone else, even not in front of him. So says the Gemara, for the Evid to go free, says you can't be chayzer on that. But if it's a detriment, it's a negative, you have to be in front of him. You want to not support your Evid, you're allowed to. So for an Evid to go free is always going to be as chas. But to not support your wife, you're not allowed to, and therefore it's going to be a chav to divorce the woman, because at least she's getting supported by her husband. Amr lehem. So the response to the Chachamim, Vareyu Paisel Zavdim and Chuma. What do you mean? But you're passing the Eved. Well, the Eved was with the master, got Chuma. Now he does not. Kshem Shu Paisel Seishto. Just like when you divorce your wife, the wife doesn't allow to eat Chuma. Amru Loi, your son Nishu Kinyanai. That's what caused the Eved is his kinyan. Now, what exactly is the Teretz? Rashi already keys us in. Don't get too involved. And what the Teretz is, the Gemara is going to deal with that. So we wrap it up with beginning of the Gemara. Yosef Ravuna Rav Yitzchak Bar Yosef Kamed Rav Yirmiyah Yosef Rav Yirmiyah Kamanamnim. So they're sitting in front of the Gadol Rav Yirmiyah, and unfortunately Rav Yirmiyah was dozing off. Yosef Ravuna V'Kamri, as Rav Yirmiyah is dozing, Ravuna gets up and he says the following thing: Shema Mina, we learn from our Mishnah Midirabana rabbinically. Ha-Taif is a Baal Chayv Kana. You could be Taifes for a Baal Chayv. Is this even when it's a negative for someone else? I could grab on behalf of you, even if someone else is going to lose. Yeah, even if someone else is going to lose. So, for example, I could go to Reuven. I could take $100 on behalf of Shimon, because I know that Reuven owes Shimon $100. Even though there are other people that want to get this $100 from Reuven because he owes other people money, I'm still allowed to take matters into my own hands. That's the din they said. Adahachi, as they were saying this, Rav Yirmiyah wakes up. And he says, Dardiki, you children. This is what Rav Yechon said. That what? This is what Rav Yechon said. If it makes a negative to someone else, you're not koin. Mishnah saying, what about our Mishnah? So our Mishnah is no shayches, because kol tenu, kaimer zachu dami. Because our Mishnah is discussing a case that when you said tenu, give this, it says if you said to be zayches, so as long as it's going to be a positive, therefore it's going to be acquiring it for the Eved right away, and you don't need the shlichus at all. Amar Rav Chisda, Tevis V'Achamim Shechav L'Acherim, Banu L'Machlaikes, Rav Elazar Rabban is going to be a massive Machlaikes, which with Siyata Dishmaya we will pick up from tomorrow.